And now, the survival show which once survived 72 hours straight of Hurricane Matthew coverage. In this episode, it's just you and I. And we're going to answer some of your burning questions. Howdy and welcome to In the Rabbit Hole's Urban Survival Podcast. This is episode number 190. I'm your host, Aaron, and you are in the rabbit hole, safe and sound. Seriously, someone needs to get Shepard Smith a Valium or something. You're all gonna die! Wow. The news media just keeps getting better and better, doesn't it? But I hope everyone in Florida whether you listen to the show or not, I hope everyone in Florida fared well in the recent hurricane. And so we had a guest kind of not able to make it today, so I thought, why not go through some listener emails? We've actually never done that on the show before, or at least I think maybe we did once, but if we had, it's been a long time. And a lot of the same questions do come up from time to time. So, hey, why not answer them on the show? Anyway, I do actually answer every email we get. Every legitimate email. I don't answer the ones that launch into how the rabbit hole should support someone's shit at no benefit to the show or the audience. So, of course, those go to spam. But anyway, again, I thought instead of, answering the emails by hand, which is how I usually make that happen, we just do a short show together. I can speak today. And y'all get to hear the answers. I've stripped out a lot of the backstory and the extra stuff that people tend to put in emails. So we'll just read the straight meat of the questions for y'all here and then give you my take. And so let's dive in here. The first question is from John W. I'm not going to give everyone's full name and stuff since I don't think they really want me to do that. Let's see. It's a rabbit question. What's the best breed of rabbit for meat production? Well, John, let's see. We started with Californians, and they did okay, but we did end up settling on New Zealand's after a while. The first 4 rabbits we had, as a matter of fact, were New Zealand's. We had 1 buck and 3 does. And then after that, we found a really lovely local breeder that ended up mentoring us a bit, and she and her husband had just wonderful New Zealand's. And we went forward with that. What we found was there was a higher meat yield, a better feed to weight, I guess, output ratio. And they tended to have a better disposition. Not that rabbits meat pen rabbits are that bad or that they'll, horribly attack you. Although we do have the running joke that we were training attack rabbits for a period, but we only have one rabbit that's kind of got a nasty temper. The rest are just not all that friendly. And we found the New Zealand's to be just a little nicer. Not that it was that big of a deal, but they were. They tended to be considerably bigger in size and in what weight they would dress out to once they were butchered and everything. So that's kind of where we landed with that. And I think if I had to do it all over again, I would have started off with the New Zealand's. It's splitting hairs, haha. No, but really, we found the New Zealand's to be a little bit better. So I think you can't really go wrong with either breed, but that's what we found to be the best. Now, there are a few other breeds that are good meat pen rabbits. I still think from everything I've read and everything I looked, New Zealand's still seem to be the best for your meat breeding production there, your meat production. But there are a few other, we never really experimented with any others because we are in Houston and we were dealing with a lot of heat, a lot of humidity, and those 2 breeds seem to be the best for dealing with the heat. There is some weird like hairless rabbit or something that Texas A&M bred, or it's like, I don't know, balding rabbit or something that does even better in the heat. But we never, I didn't really feel like getting into mutant rabbits. So that was why we went the direction we did. And that really is a big issue. And we have lost over the years, not a lot of rabbits. We've lost a few rabbits to heat. I mean, it's definitely just you show up and they are gone, and it's upsetting, and it is a lot of. We did find that there was a lot of work in making ice bottles for the rabbits during the hotter days during the summer. But anyway, that's really why we only stuck with just those two breeds. So that would be my advice. Would be New Zealand's very safe bet for your meat production if that is the route you want to go. Honestly, I think even going a little bit beyond your question here, John, rabbits are great, but quail or chicken, I think may actually be better. The quail or chicken are easier to cull. People seem to have, in general, people have less of an emotional issue and less emotional attachment to chickens. I do know there are some people that are very attached to their chickens, but there does tend to, it's been my experience, there tends to be less of an emotional attachment. The rabbits require more care and attention, I think, than chickens do. Quail are fairly self-serving. The issue we ran into with the rabbits was just that, well, you couldn't just let the rabbits go loose in the yard, whereas the chickens could pretty much roam free, and if you were in a situation where you had enough space, they could even do a little bit of foraging, which the rabbits really can't do. And it tends to be, there's just more stuff that kind of seems to go wrong with the rabbit setup. We've had an issue where we've had to regularly check and bleed and keep on top of the system we've put in place, which is a pretty standard system for delivering water to the rabbits. And what I found is from time to time that gets clogged up, and it gets clogged up. And of course the rabbits can't talk, so they'll go without water, and you become in tune with understanding the signs that your rabbit's water is not working. It's usually they won't eat their food, or when they see you, they'll constantly run back and forth to the water nipple. That's kind of a big, those are the two big giveaways. And then you have to go over and disconnect the nipple and clear it out and reconnect the nipple and kind of turn the water valve back on and all that other fun stuff. Whereas with the chickens, we never ran into that. It was just a great big there's a watering bucket that is gravity fed that you give chickens, and as long as you keep that puppy filled, they're fine, and it's pretty obvious when that thing runs out of water. So if you were going to go out of town for a week or something like that, it's fairly easy to have somebody else take care of your chickens. Whereas with rabbits, there's that one water issue where algae and just gunk can build up in the system and close off. And they, if you're just having some random friend take care of your animals for you, they are not necessarily going to know how to look for the problem with the water nipples getting clogged up. And they're not going to know how to fix it. You could always explain it to them, but I think that was just my experience with it. I found chickens to be more disgusting, but easier to deal with. So anyway, just my thoughts on meat production in general. There's, rabbits and of course quail are even better. And I think we did an episode or two on quail a while back. So you may want to check that out before you dive headlong into bunnies. Next question we've got here is another farm question from Blake O. If you could do the farm all over again, what would you do differently? Obviously, now you've had some time to reflect, and with your getting ready to shut it down and everything. Yeah, Blake, we actually have shut it down. I'm getting ready to, nobody emailed in and said that they wanted the rabbits or anything like that. So I'm just going to set them free. Someone was teasing me recently that I'd be better off eating them. Most of these rabbits are a little older, so they'd have to go in a stew pot for an awfully long time. And really, I'm just tired of eating rabbits. So I'm just going to set them free and be done with it. And hopefully they will go forth and prosper and make more little baby bunnies, and they'll be baby bunnies and mischief, and I'll, be hated by my neighborhood, which is entertaining for me. So, yep, that's what's going to happen with them. But if I had to do it all over again, I would start with the watering system, and there's no other way I would really look at this. It's if you can't provide water, whether you're talking about vegetables or meat production, if you cannot easily provide water in a scalable way to your situation, you are going to fast run into problems. With us, it wasn't something we really thought through carefully. It seemed easy enough because, of course, we just kind of rushed into it, and we started with 4 rabbits, and 4 rabbits were relatively easy. We had one 5-gallon bucket that had the watering system I just mentioned that took care of those rabbits. And, once a day I would walk out there and fill. They'd usually 4 rabbits. They were usually sucking down about 2 gallons of water. So I would just take out 2 gallons of water every day and put it in there. And that took care of things, and they never really ran out of water unless we ran into a clogged nipple situation. But other than that, they were fine. When we scaled to, 10 rabbits, water started to become a real hassle. It was now we were really having to drag water out there, a lot of water out there every day. And it just really kind of wore on my nerves. It wore on our buddy Jason's nerves. And it was just an issue. And the other problem was the rabbits would go through a lot more water than you'd think they would. So the issue we ran into was that I could not leave the farm. Like Jason and I together could not leave town for more than a couple of days at a time unless we could find somebody we trusted to really, go water the rabbits. So that was the issue with that. And I kind of singling this out to the rabbit. The same problem was happening with the chickens, actually, because at that, by the time we were getting up there in rabbits, we were also getting up there in chickens. And so the chickens were requiring a lot of water too. And the whole situation just kind of snuck up on us. And we didn't realize it was a problem until it was too late. And then we were trapped in the situation. So I would figure out first how you're going to handle water, if you were to scale your situation. If you are in a situation where scaling the water is not an option because you can only do a very small thing in a small area, then fine. But if you are thinking big and thinking, well, in the future, I want to have more beds or more animals or more this or that, you really need to start and think about how do I get water today to facilitate what I'm doing, and how do I scale the water tomorrow? So that is the first thing I would do before I do anything else, Blake, would be start with water. Let's see, next question we got here is from Cynthia B. Is kind of a dark question, actually, and a very deep question. Do you ever think about ending the show? I was actually asked this in person by someone not too long ago, and I'm not sure how to take more than one person asking me this within a 1 month span. What are y'all trying to say here? But the answer is actually yes. Some days I do. Podcasts are a lot more work than people think they are. It is certainly a lot more work than I thought it was going to be when I got into it. It seems very easy, right? Like you listen to a podcast and it's like, well, it was an hour and a guy just kind of jibber jabbered for an hour, or you just sat and talked to somebody for an hour, and then you wrap it up and out it goes. There's a lot more to it than that. Every, even a fairly unedited episode is time consuming. Now, a well-edited show will break out like this about, an hour show will end up costing you about 4 to 6 hours of post-production work, show notes, writing, editing, loading, all that other stuff. So when you're done, a single episode can very easily eat up 7 hours of your life. But even a simple show is going to take 2 to 3 hours because you're still going to need to do a few things to ensure audio levels, to kind of clean up the sound maybe a little bit. to put the music on the front and back, and to write up an introduction and record that, and to do the same thing on an outro, and then the work of loading up a show and everything else. It even something short, you're still in it for 2 to 3 hours. So yeah, some days it kind of, you're just like, oh my God, this is a lot. Is this really what I do? But I think the show is still a blast to do, and I can't imagine not doing it. So yeah, I think about it some days, but yeah, I think the rabbit hole will be around for a while. Anyway, moving on. Andy S., what is your go-to rifle? You keep asking guests this question, and I don't think I've ever heard you answer it, mister. Well, Andy, you're right. I don't know if I ever have. I think I've perhaps hinted at it in a few episodes, but the reality is this is actually a very tough answer for me to give, really. I view rifles, I view all guns, but in particular in the case of this conversation, I view rifles like a screwdriver. Several can do the job, but only one will do it right. And then there's always the one random person who's going to try to use a butter knife. But I don't know where that goes in that analogy, but you know what I mean. But if I had to pick one, it would be my 300 Blackout SBR. Reasons for that would be versatility and maneuverability. It's great in close quarters. It suppresses well. That's not necessarily a really practical thing. I guess if, go-to rifle, we are talking about the zombie or zombie clown or just clown apocalypse, or, the 2016 election apocalypse, whatever. So if that, viewing it like that as a go-to rifle, I find it to be the most versatile. It covers the most realistic in the most unrealistic ways, in that I don't really ever, I sincerely hope I never have to go to that rifle for serious business, for anything other than punching holes in paper. But if I did, that would be mine. And for those reasons, I think and one of the first things that really sold me on that was James Price's class, his Mobile Scout School, was getting in and out of a vehicle with a full-size rifle. And again, this is not a likely scenario, but if we are going to be preppers and play in that world and work in that world and prepare for those kinds of things, then it makes sense, because I watched a lot of people fall out of a truck, having caught up their own legs in their own rifle, and even caught up their legs in buddy's rifle. But with an SBR, that didn't happen. It made a lot more sense, and it was much easier to move in and out of a vehicle and move around. And it's the same thing if you're in a structure. There's a couple things that come up. One, with a longer barrel, I mean, you're going to have some of this happen with an SBR too, but with a longer barrel, it's kind of got a telegraphed punch as you come around a corner or move around a wall or anything like that to anyone standing around. I mean, you've a 16-inch barrel coming off the front. And even if you're going to pop it up, it's a lot. So an SBR it doesn't completely take that away like a handgun would, but it's kind of straddles the world. The other thing is it does suppress well. It is a very comfortable gun to shoot without hearing protection suppressed, whereas I found 5.56 and 308 not to suppress that well. The exclusion to that is actually subsonic 308, which is kind of hard to find unless you're going to make your own or do some other extenuating stuff that's neither here nor there. Yeah, then that gets pretty quiet, but it starts to get complicated. Anyway, that's kind of my reasons. The other thing is I took out my SBR not too long ago with Mark, who did the reloading show, and I dropped 19 of 20 rounds into something a little smaller than a man's chest at 100 yards, and I was shooting offhand with a hasty sling. The first shot just gave me the drop I needed to know, and the rest went right where I needed them to go. So, people talk about that the 300 Blackout is only a sub 300 meter gun. It can actually reach out much farther than that. You're kind of lobbing the bullets almost like a mortar round if you go much past 300 yards. But I mean, the reality, and even I get it, we're tampering reality with extreme situations here, but if I'm in a situation where I need to take a shot that's more than 300 yards, there are other guns I would rather use. And this goes back to my whole thing about, I view guns like screwdrivers. So in a general, most likely of least likely to happen things going on, the 300 kind of covers my bases, especially since I'm in an urban area. Now, some of where I live, I have some pretty surprisingly long distances in the city, but I don't see needing to take that long of a shot. And on a totally side note, as long as we're talking about it, my wife, Jen, recently got me an Elfman 3-gun trigger for my birthday, which was super nice and super awesome. And I promptly installed it. It feels pretty amazing. And I haven't had a chance to actually shoot it yet. So as soon as I do, I will have to follow up with y'all about it. I've actually had a number of people that knew that I got it or kind of really on me to go test it out. Just been really busy lately and haven't had time to get to the range to put some lead down range or turn bullets into fun smoke and noise. So let's see, what's the next one? Jackass. Where do you find the time to practice all the stuff you cover on the show? I'm feeling overwhelmed and frustrated at the moment, trying to learn everything I feel I need to. Jack, I would say take a deep breath. That's the first thing you should do. No matter what you're worried about, the sky probably isn't falling tomorrow. And even if it was, you couldn't go from 1 to 100 successfully. So, you've got to not try to do everything all at once. It's easy to want to do that. It's easy to get sucked into it. It's easy to kind of have shiny object syndrome with a lot of things in prep, new skills being one of those situations where it's easy to kind of chase a whole bunch of things and get nothing done. So my suggestion is, and this is really kind of what I do, is pick 2 to 4 being the max there, 2 to 4 things a year. Do them one at a time, on like business quarters. That should, gives you a few months for each one. And that's enough time to really kind of get into something and get the general hang of it. And the other part is I don't do everything we talk about on the show. I think some people assume that I do all this stuff all the time, everything, every which way. And I don't. I don't have that kind of time. I mean, and there's a lot of stuff it may be a very long time. I may never get around to it. Some things I am a raging bull and just run right off and do. Some things they don't interest me that much, or I just can't get into it for one reason or another, or, whatever. An example of this would be the mead and beer making show recently. I think it's really cool. It's something I would love to do. It's not that time consuming or anything like that. And it's not that expensive of a hobby to get into, but just right now I have so many other things going on. So that really kind of just leaves me enough time for the one thing that I actually have time that I am very slowly moving into, which is really getting set up with reloading. So, and that is still moving forward at a snail's pace, honestly. I've just been so busy, but that is how I would deal with that situation is don't try to do everything all at once, dude. Chill. Do, one thing at a time or, whatever. But if you're panicking and freaking out, something's wrong. You need to take a step back. Next question from Brian B. How can I convince my wife prepping is okay? I'm not laughing at you, Brian. I get this question so often. But it's not just from guys. I think a lot of guys think it's just guys, but this applies to women too. And I know we've covered this several times in several episodes, but we'll do it again here because we get those questions so often. Here's how I break it down. First, lead from the front. Do small things to move your preparedness forward and don't ask for permission. That does not mean a $5,000 AR or 1911 or some other such shenanigans. Just gently proceed forward. The second thing is lead by example. Again, do small things, move your preparedness forward, and don't ask for permission. Yes, I know I'm being kind of repetitive because that's what you do. It's less complicated than people think it is. And I would say keep with the simple stuff. Don't try to turn your home into a nuclear zombie war ready bunker overnight. And that's sure to, if somebody's not on the path with you, that is a sure way of kind of making them think you're batshit crazy and not and making them averse to doing it. So I would say have them help you and join you in little stuff and kind of work forward progressively. And so you could do things like, I don't know, installing smoke detectors, or for that matter, just going around your house and checking smoke detectors and have them help you, or, have them help you with, I don't know, picking out fire extinguishers or stuff that's kind of, normal. I'm using air quotes. That's not out there. I'm using air quotes again. And think of it like a yes ladder, if you know what that is. Just small little stuff and move forward as it makes sense. So this leads me to the third thing. The third rule of prep. The third rule, I can get this out today. The third rule of Prep Club is actually have a frank talk with the other person about it, and tell the other person you're concerned. And I would temper the reasons why you're concerned. I mean, it depends. Some people have more extreme reasons than others, but I guess the big takeaway here is whatever it is you're wanting to talk to them about. Remember, you may be a little new to this or something like that, and so you're going to be rather in their face and evangelical about it. Take it down about a dozen notches. And I guess think of it this way. You're at the mile 10 marker of a race and they haven't even taken the first step yet. So if you're like, yeah, come on, run 10 miles, they're going to be like, yeah, they go screw. But, so you've got to go slow. Don't scare the crap out of them. Just ease them into the conversation. And for men especially, we see a problem, we want to fix a problem, we don't feel the need to talk about it. The only things we need to talk about it are what kind of shit do we need to buy to accomplish this mission, and what kind of tools are we going to need for this, and who's going to do what and when, and then that's kind of the end of it. With wives, it's easier to sit down and have an actual conversation of, this is what I'm feeling, this is what's going on. These are a few simple things I would like us to do as a husband and wife, or as a couple, or whatever, to go forward with that. And honestly, ladies, I think it's the same thing in reverse for y'all. To say you're concerned and here are the things you like to do. And if that doesn't work out, I think sometimes people are asking for too much permission to be grown-ass adults. And I don't know another way to do it. Sometimes you just have to go forward. Again, that does not mean go forward with buying, like, I don't know, $7,000 pallet of Mountain House food and having that delivered, or some crazy overpriced AR or some other gun. It's start off simple. Anyway, next question from Andrew F. Who are you voting for? Oh God. If this election season is about as entertaining to me as hitting myself in the head with a hammer. Not that I do that often, but that's kind of where I'm at with that. I think, who am I going to vote for? Sweet Meteor O' Death, Zombie Apocalypse, perhaps. Those are my real choices. There was a hot minute there where I thought I'd vote for Gary Johnson, but after listening to him a few times recently and reading some of his stuff, I don't actually see him as the candidate I thought he was, and so not worth my time. Jonathan recently made the argument to me, he was better than the alternatives. Meh. But like I said, to me, it's still it's not worth my time and energy. And that's really kind of how I view it. That's an hour or two of my time. I've got to go somewhere and pull a lever for, hold my nose in the case of all of this. And I just don't see the point. For me personally, I'd rather spend the time sitting on my back porch in the, what is now finally lovely weather here in Houston, smoking a cigar and drinking a glass of scotch, or watching an episode of Mad Men, or making an episode for y'all, for that matter. They all take, these are things I would rather do than go vote. I just am completely turned off by the entire process, the people, the media, everything involved. I just don't see where it's worth my time. And I think I hear a lot of different arguments for voting and doing all this other stuff, and a vote for this is a vote against that and all this other. I'm done with it. I'm done debating it with people. I'm done giving a flying shit, honestly. So that's where I'm with that. What any of you decide to do is up to you. I'm not discounting anyone else. I'm not poo-pooing your decisions or your candidate or whatever it is that you want to do. Go bananas. It's your life, your time, your choice. And so I think that's going to wrap it up here for today. Those were the big questions I got that are suitable for answering on air. And with that, we are going to wrap up episode number 190. Show notes for today's episode, of course, can be found at intherabbithole.com/E190 from the Lone Star State. Till next time, stay safe and sound.